It's the Infinite Podcast. Go tell your friends. It's the Infinite Podcast. My God, it never ends. It's the Infinite Podcast with Rob and Portrayed.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Project Infinite Podcast, a podcast covering the infinite and ever-expanding multiverse of fandom. From movies, comics, TV shows, video games, we got you covered. I'm Rob. I'm here with Court. Court, we are on the precipice of Superman.
Yeah, it's such a full circle moment. I mean, you look back 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, kind of when it was announced, like it was out of the Snyder Cut kind of, world that we were living in. 2022 rolled around. I think it was like 2022, 2023. And then, it was announced that, out of the success of the Suicide Squad, that James Gunn would be taking on the Superman movie. I think at the time we didn't know if he was going to direct or not, but we knew that he was going to lead the process and he was going to write it, which was very surreal at the moment, but then it kind of turned into this quickly awesome feat. And then, the casting started rolling in, obviously all the rumors were rolling in, all the actors that could have played Superman, and David Corenswet kind of came and, just kind of conquered this role for all intents and purposes. So, I remember that first, what was the tagline? Superman, what was the tagline it was supposed to be?
Superman Legacy?
Yeah, Superman Legacy. And then Justin Timberlake walked in from the set of The Social Network and he said, drop the legacy, just do Superman. And we are here, 2025. We're 2 weeks away from, we're going to see this movie a little early. So we're literally about a little over 2 weeks away from seeing, the new iteration of Superman for the modern age.
Yeah, I can't wait. Speaking of The Social Network, they're making a sequel to that.
Yeah, yep. That's funnily enough, they are.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes. Because I don't think Finch is involved. I think it's just Sorkin is writing
Correct.
and directing.
Yep.
Which is interesting.
And Sorkin's last movie he directed was The Whale, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So that was kind of an aside. But yeah.
No, The Whale was Aronofsky. My mistake.
We're going to talk about Superman in the spirit of kind of with this new iteration of Superman. We're kind of just going to give a history and legacy and, all the actors that have kind of, paved the way for David Corenswet and have portrayed Superman on screen, because it's a quite eclectic, group of actors and stories behind those actors. So we just thought with Superman returning to the big screen, we would kind of go through the history and heritage of Superman on screen and see, how that, how we've gotten from the 40s to now.
Yeah. I mean, a character that's been 90 years in the making of this character. And, we're going to focus obviously on the actors and the different types of, media of which we've consumed Superman, but also the cultural impact of Superman, which I think is equally, if not more important. And I think that's James Gunn's whole point about this Superman is, I'll talk about kind of the contrast between this and Fantastic Four, why both are equally as important, but for different reasons. So really looking forward to that. But first, we got some news.
We do have some news. First and foremost, at the front, Amazon has revealed who's going to take the helm of the next Bond movie, and it's going to be none other than Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah, you know what this feels like? You remember when Pedro Pascal got cast as Mr. Fantastic, and you're like, you can't certainly go with the best actor available, right? And then they were like, you actually can. And, obviously for me, Denis is my probably a top 2 favorite director, maybe ever. So for him to jump from Dune to Bond, because I thought he was going to go right to Rendezvous with Rama after Dune. I mean, it's absolutely just breathtaking stroke of luck that Amazon was able to lock him down. I mean, the details of the deal, I believe he doesn't have final say, which, in of itself kind of, it sucks a little bit. You want the director to kind of have the final say, but hopefully I believe they'll do that character justice. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking about the team he might build to go onto that Bond film. I mean, it's kind of, it seems very evident that he's probably going to bring Greg Fraser with him to shoot this movie. That kind of is what my feel will be, because obviously Greg Fraser just came off of shooting, Project Hail Mary, which we're going to talk about. I think he's probably going to move into the Batman after that, and then probably right into Bond right after the Batman. So I was just looking at some frames and some scenes from some Denis Villeneuve movies, and you kind of look and you're like, wow, you're about to get one of the most famous, the famous characters of all time. That's just all types of awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool for him. Obviously he's obviously rising to prominence because of Dune, but obviously he's been making stellar movies for years now. At this point.
I always say he has one of the most insane film runs of all time. What is it? Incendies to Prisoners to Sicario to Arrival to Blade Runner to Dune 1 and 2, then on to Bond. Like, that's absurd. That's an absurd run of films that you have had, critically acclaimed, audience acclaimed. I mean, he's such a dynamic filmmaker, but he's also he has the scale of Christopher Nolan, but he also has the reverence of like a, how do I put it? Of like a, if you like amalgamate like Fincher and Scorsese into one, like he has like such this like gruff and broad tone to himself as well too. I love the way that he makes films. I love the grandiose nature in which he makes films. And I love kind of they're very tough's not the right word, because then you get films like Arrival and specifically Dune 1. I love the ambience of Dune 1, kind of how it breathes and it echoes. So for him to take a Bond film, to take it, because this is the first time he's getting like a character, like, you know what I mean? Like a character that he can kind of mold, I think. I don't think we've seen work like that from him since, I think Blade Runner, he did a good job, especially with Agent K, kind of doing that with Ryan Gosling, but very excited. Which brings us on to the casting. Who would you like to see play the new James Bond now that we know it's Denis Villeneuve?
Yeah. It's a great question, because I think even Amazon said that they weren't going to cast until the script was done.
And I think the big thing, it's going to be a younger Bond. That's like a known fact that this Bond will be younger.
Yeah, I mean, just coming off of, we saw F1. I mean, Dames and Interest is right there.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I feel like for the modern age, obviously, you know, he got his true fame from Snowfall. Obviously, F1 is printing money right now. Like, it is making a stupid amount. It made 144 in the opening weekend for a non-franchise movie. It's one of the biggest opening originals of the last of the last few decades, which is awesome. He has it. He has that suave Bond nature, but he can also get a little rough, which I appreciate. I think he really embodies kind of like what Daniel Craig's Bond kind of goes for as well too. Like, I want to see him get his hands dirty, which that's what I think Daniel Craig's Bond did really well. But he has like also that suave nature of the old Bonds as well too. Your Pierce Brosnans, so on and so forth. So I'm really looking forward to it. For me, just because you said Desmond Idris, I did like, because Amazon, I guess, said like, we want like a Harrison, like it was Jacob Elordi, Tom Holland, and Harrison Dickinson. The Harrison Dickinson, I think, would be really good as James Bond. Somebody made a really good point on a podcast. They said Will Poulter as Bond would be a fun choice. The funniest one I saw, and then I was like, wait, in the weirdest of ways this can actually work. Just bear with me. Matthew Berry as James Bond. Would that not be the funniest James Bond film you've ever seen? I'm going to give you an absolute outside of the box thinking one. You just have to bear with me for this one. As No Time to Die has taught us, Bond is, or 007 is the moniker. It's not the person. For that sense, I'm going with Anya Taylor-Joy.
Oh.
To play Bond.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but.
No, I like that. I like that. She definitely has the feel of a spy.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. That's why I said it. Like, and obviously she's been working with Denis Villeneuve as well too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not stupid though. Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan are good friends. Tom Holland is about to star in Christopher Nolan's next movie. I do see a world where Tom Holland's next precipice as an actor is playing James Bond.
I mean, so here's the problem with Tom Holland.
Oh no, careful.
The problem with Tom Holland is he has not. I mean, maybe hopefully the Odyssey will help with this, but I understand how old he is,
mm-hmm.
but he doesn't look it.
Yeah, sure.
Which is not his fault.
Yeah.
At all. But like, I think back to like Uncharted,
mm-hmm.
where like he played Nathan Drake, but like he still felt like a kid.
Yeah.
And like I said, maybe the Odyssey will help with this, and it also has to do with the fact that he's still playing Spider-Man.
Right.
He's still playing a young Spider-Man.
Right.
So it's just it'd be hard for me to look at him as like James Bond.
Right.
But I get it, and it's not his fault, and he's a good actor.
Right.
It's just it's just the way he unfortunately is incredibly young.
I'm gonna switch my pick because I feel like this person is about to kind of go on like this heightened trajectory as an actor. I'm gonna go with Aaron Pierre to play James Bond.
Yeah.
I think that he fits so many facets that you need to play James Bond. Like, you know, you talk about that suave nature, cool under pressure nature. Aaron Pierre has that. And it's his, I think for him, it's his voice, truthfully, will kind of carry him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He has the physical prowess as well, too. I think I like the approach they took with Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig's a little bit smaller. Like, he's not some, like, huge hulking human being. But I think this time you can go with that. Obviously, the acting chops are there. If you saw Rebel Ridge, like, you know that the physicality, he has it as well, too. So I think plausibly my end-all be-all choice would be Aaron Pierre. I think he has everything that you're looking for in James Bond he encompasses.
Yeah. I think also, too, with Denis directing, I think they're going to scale back the action a little bit.
Yep.
From, like, the Craig Bond, who is notoriously a maniac. And those were, like, you know, high budget like action films pretty much.
Right.
I could see Denis going in a direction of like we're gonna go back to like the spy espionage kind of aspect of Bond, and I think that will lean into the charisma of the actor, whoever they end up choosing. So I think that's what we're kind of gonna go for. I think they're gonna scale back the action quite a bit, and kind of return to kind of like the espionage, kind of like we were talking about Mission Impossible.
Yes.
Like if the Mission Impossible franchise were to continue without Tom Cruise, you'd have to naturally probably scale back the insanity of the action, and kind of regress it back to kind of like the espionage, spy networking type thing. Is what I think they're going to end up doing.
No, I agree 100%. And you know, it's funny how grand, and I was just talking about how grand Denis operates in, but I think this approach kind of would get back to like his Prisoners days. Like I want kind of almost like a psychological thriller from a Bond film as well too. And like you said, really play up the espionage, really play up, you know, these like super detailed action sequences, like this super tight hand to hand as well too. I think Greg Fraser is somebody you add to the team. You know, going down a list of personnel you would need. I mean, in terms of a score, I feel like, you know, Ludwig Göransson's right there as well too. I would love to see him take a crack at a Bond theme, but Hans Zimmer, has he done a Bond theme yet?
I'm not sure.
I don't think Hans Zimmer has done Bond before. So that being said, naturally, I think that would just be because like I feel like Hans Zimmer does like he'll do like his F1 type of movies where like he doesn't need to try overtly too insane. It's his talent is just so immense that he can step into a movie really quickly like that. And then he can do like Dune where he takes his time, like he actually builds an entire score behind it as well too. So I feel like for Bond, he's going to do that. He's going to kind of take his own thing. But again, I'd love to see Ludwig Göransson take a crack at it.
Moving on to other things. So this Street Fighter movie.
Yeah, I see. There's one movie announcement I was super excited for, and then we get to Street Fighter, and I'm like, what is going on?
We're going down a dangerous path.
We are.
So obviously this movie was greenlit, and it was announced, and Kitao Sakurai is directing, who's probably best known for he did the Twisted Metal show. He did Bad Trip on Netflix. He directed the Eric Andre show. So he's directing the Street Fighter movie, and we don't know anything about it other than it's coming out next year. And then they just dropped a swath of cast news on this movie, and it's all over the place.
Yeah.
To where I don't think this movie's gonna be good. I think I'll start there.
It feels very like YouTube, you know, like when movies get like YouTubers like to be in the movie, because it's the popular thing to do. Like, I mean, let's start with Curtis Jackson, 50 Cent out of the gate. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was fine with that one. Like, I don't know why I was like, all right.
Yeah, so he's playing Balrog, who Balrog is, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Street Fighter is basically Mike Tyson. Is basically who Balrog is. He's like the boxer type character.
And I could see 50 Cent doing that. I can see him doing that.
I think it makes total sense.
Where it gets weird.
It gets weird. It can get weirder.
It can get weirder.
starting with, and this isn't necessarily weird, but it's weird for the rest of the cast, and that's Andrew Koji playing Ryu, who feels that's like that's good casting if you're gonna try and make a good movie.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like he's in Bullet Train. Obviously Warrior is great.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a martial arts background.
Yes. Yep.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So like I saw that first, and then I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
And then it just kept getting weirder. So I guess I'll talk about Kalina Liang as Chun-Li, who is she's kind of like on that TikTok, YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
but she can also act.
Right.
And then it goes off the rails. So Noah Centineo is gonna play Ken.
Right.
Um,
Which again, I was like, oh, okay.
makes sense. Good American kind of counterpart to Ryu, which is
Mhm.
pretty much what Ken is. And then we just devolve into this trio of just strange casting. So Jason Momoa is going to be Blanca.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who don't know, Blanca is kind of an electricity-based savage type monster
Mm-hmm.
person.
Right.
I don't know how else to explain it. It doesn't feel very Jason Momoa.
Right.
So I thought that was odd.
Yeah.
Love Jason Momoa, but just doesn't feel like it's playing to Jason Momoa's strengths.
But at least this is a Jason Momoa-esque movie.
Yes. He did Minecraft.
Yeah.
He did Fast and Furious.
You know the guy that directed Napoleon Dynamite did Minecraft?
Oh. Huh. Interesting. So then these last two ones are also weird. So Orville Peck is no relation. Is a country music artist who will be playing Vega, who is a masked Spanish assassin. So do with that. And then last and not least, WWE superstar Roman Reigns will be playing Akuma,
Mm-hmm.
which again, I mean, Akuma is Japanese, so first and foremost, odd choice.
And then Andrew Schultz is in this movie?
Andrew Schultz is going to play Dan Hibiki, which is, I mean, Dan is comic relief, so I guess
Right.
makes sense, but also, what are we doing here?
I don't know, man.
Alan Ritchson is also in this movie. He's playing Guile.
Oh, maybe they can run up the love interest that we were missing in Fast X between him and Jason Momoa. I won't stop until the franchise makes them a couple. I won't stop.
I don't know. I can't imagine a world where this movie's any good and makes any money and probably sets back all the goodwill that like The Last of Us has built up and like the Mario movie has built up for like video game movie adaptations. I feel like this movie is destined to set it back
Right.
several years.
Yeah.
It's not even, I guess we'll have to see what happens with it. And we'll see like first looks whenever they start filming this thing, but it doesn't even seem like it's going in like Mortal Kombat got actors
Right.
for their movie. And kind of garnered kind of like some goodwill.
Yeah.
I'll say the Mortal Kombat
Right.
movie generated. Obviously the Cole storyline was not everyone's favorite. But it seems like Mortal Kombat 2 is gonna do like proper Mortal Kombat.
Right.
So I don't know. I just had to talk about it because it's insane. It's an insane cast.
It is wild. So this movie can teeter. I mean, your comp that you have to try to get to is probably Mortal Kombat. You know what I mean? Like that's probably where you're gonna have to want to like. That's probably the best you can get.
Yeah.
The worst you can get is bad. The worst you can get is a YouTube movie, which is probably not what you want to do.
Yeah. And
I'm still gonna see it.
I'll watch it. Yeah. Because I mean, we'll see. Like I see a cast like this, and weirdly enough, like I start getting images in my brain of like how the movie's gonna look,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just envisioning like cheesy CGI,
Mm-hmm.
like cringy dialogue
Mm-hmm.
is kind of what I'm starting to like envision it.
Right.
And I'm just like, I'm not excited to see what ends up happening. But something I am excited to see that's happening is something that caught me totally by surprise. The Punisher is going to be in Spider-Man 4.
Yeah. I'll never forget when that happened. You texted me and I was sleeping and I woke up and I was like, I looked at because you didn't say the Punisher was cast. You said you made a joke about Peter and Punisher interact, like John Bernthal and Tom Holland interacting, and I didn't know what to make of it besides a joke. And then I looked on Twitter and I was like, oh wait, he wasn't joking. This is real.
Yeah, it's officially announced, by the Hollywood Reporter that John Bernthal will be in Spider-Man 4 as the Punisher, obviously. Which, takes the movie in a totally interesting direction. I mean, I think this pretty much confirms that this is going to be a street level type of Spider-Man movie.
I think that the studio listened and the studio understood, like, hey, like, I still think this movie's going to make $800 million plus. Like, obviously the movie.
I think this movie's going to do really well.
Yeah, any movie that has the name Spider-Man attached to it will do well. It just will.
And you have a fan favorite television character,
right,
that people have been really clamoring to see mix it up,
right,
with the greater MCU,
right.
I mean, that's kind of been the dream, right? Since he became the Punisher, it was
right.
like, man, let's see the Punisher interact with Captain America. Let's see the Punisher interact, like put the Punisher in, like that's always been the Punisher's kind of appeal, is like take this man, this angry man, and just have him mix it up with like superpowered people and see how that goes.
And that's where I think the MCU needs to go. Like they need to get back to that realm of like, it's like the comic thing. If somebody shows up in this thing and you're like, oh shoot, this is like, you never think these characters would interact, but they will, and it seems like he's going to play a decent role. I think the Punisher special probably will come out and probably during the winter of either this year or the beginning of next year, just so the summer has Spider-Man in it. I think it's cool. I mean, they're working together on the Odyssey right now, Tom Holland and John Bernthal. And John Bernthal, I think, was the one that told Tom Holland when he originally auditioned for Spider-Man, he said, everybody that auditions will be good. Everybody that they just will be. He said, you're the only one that can do backflips, so put that in your audition tape. And lo and behold, it helped him get the role of Spider-Man. And a very pivotal part for the MCU. Like, this was like the MCU debut of literally a top 3 most iconic superheroes of all time.
Yeah.
So the two of them together, I think, is going to be awesome. They're going to bounce off each other really well. I think that takes Mark Ruffalo out of this movie. I think they were probably trying to work around to get Mark Ruffalo in this movie. I think he's probably not going to be in here now, which I'm fine with. Like, if they were going to do, I don't even know how you get Mark Ruffalo in a movie like this. Like, I don't know how you fit Bruce Banner. I don't know how you fit Bruce Banner into the MCU at this point. Like, I don't know what his whole, you probably missed your opportunity to get him back in Captain America 4. So I'd rather this be a street level movie. I'm not going to be surprised within the next few weeks if we hear that Vincent D'Onofrio is also going to be in this movie. I wouldn't be surprised. Or Charlie Cox, or the both of them. And then you kind of build that street level. Did you hear the rumor of what might happen? That Sony's going to sell the rights back to Marvel because they axed every single one of their solo movies.
Shocked.
Is that a Shocker reference? They canceled every single one. The last time that happened, the Marvel got the full rights back to all the Netflix characters. So I wouldn't be surprised if the rights revert back to Marvel, so they just have Spider-Man to themselves. Then they can start to do other stuff. I think they want to do that before Miles Morales becomes a main character.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, I mean, I was just surprised.
Yeah.
Surprised that they were doing that, especially coming off the heels of them saying like, no, we want to kind of separate the TV stuff from the movie stuff now. So, I mean, it's interesting that they're going to cross that in, but I think they are kind of building towards this idea of making, I mean, if they do end up getting the rights to Spider-Man back, making Spider-Man this kind of like front man for the street level side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I would love,
which would be sick.
I don't think they'd ever, if you're going to do that, you know what you could do? It'd be tough because I think Tom Holland, especially after the Odyssey comes out, he'll just be a tried and true like movie star, which he already is. But what I was thinking is, if Marvel really wants to take the full advantage of what Disney Plus is, you do a Spider-Man show once you have the full rights, and you just run it how you were running the 90s animated. Like, it's just Spider-Man. It's Prime Spider-Man doing Prime Spider-Man things for as many seasons as you need it to be. Super high quality. Revolve the characters that you need to do in there. Charlie Cox shows up. John Bernthal shows up. You have other characters show up in there. Like, who's to say you don't have like a Sam Wilson show up in that show? You know what I mean? Like I've always had dreams of doing like a prime Spider-Man show weekly basis. Like, there's no like, this is differential. Like this is it. So maybe we see a run like that once they get the full rights back, but then you miss out on $1 billion at the box office. So I don't think that'll ever happen.
Yeah, probably not. But no, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how they integrate the Punisher into. I mean, obviously the Daredevil Born Again is like it's in the MCU, but it still feels very hyper connected to like the Daredevil-verse.
Right.
So I'm curious. And it's interesting that the Punisher is the first one that they're gonna properly bring into the fold as far as like interacting with the greater MCU. It's been super interesting to me that the Punisher is the one that they.
You would have thought it was gonna be Charlie Cox. If they were gonna do it. I thought they were gonna do a Kingpin.
I mean, Daredevil wasn't in No Way Home, but still. All the more reason to think it would have been Daredevil that would have shown up.
But apparently, I guess there's another MCU character that's going to be in this movie. So it's probably going to be him or Vincent D'Onofrio. That's the one that I can truthfully see that Kingpin is like the backdoor, like villain of this actual movie. Like, what I think this movie's going to play at is I think they'll cast Martin Lee, which just get the guy that played him in the game to be him.
Yeah.
He was in Mission Impossible as well too, which was awesome.
Yes.
So, I do think they're going to cast Steven Yeun, though. I do think it's going to be him.
That would also be that would be great.
Because I know there was rumors about it, but either way, whoever they cast, it's probably going to be a great casting. You just have Martin Lee be the main villain of this movie. I don't know who they're going to have. I forget the woman from The Bear, what her name is. Because she was cast as a villain for this movie as well.
Sadie Sink is also in this movie.
Well, that's the big like elephant in the room is who is Sadie Sink playing? Like. I've always had this idea of like, you want to appeal to like the broad fans, and I think to stray away and do some of these like a little bit deeper cuts characters from like the 90s and 2000s, like it's a blessing and a curse you're going to get out of it too. So you got to like kind of be a bit careful if you're going to do it. So, because I know they were talking about her playing some like different characters, some different love interests for Spider-Man. So I think that's probably the route they're going to go because she's not going to play MJ. I do somewhat disagree with Zendaya and Jacob Babylon being in this movie. If they are, I hope it's for like a second. Like I hope they don't like dominate this. Like I think that was the whole point. Is like that was the sacrifice he had to make. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to this. Like we were kind of clamoring. Like we're really hoping this movie was street level, and all intents and purposes, it looks like it. Yeah,
if the Punisher's going to be in it, that pretty much confirms it.
Yeah. Unless they give him the War Machine suit.
I'm still waiting for that. We're getting closer to that though. We have some DC Batman adjacent news. First and foremost, Clayface is confirmed rated R, and Tom Rhys-Harries is going to be playing Clayface. It's going to be like a horror type movie.
Body horror, because James Gunn talked about his love for body horror, especially, it's funny enough, on the Scooby-Doo movies. Yeah. He talked about his love for body horror.
It's going to take on like AI in the movie industry and stuff like that.
Deep fakes. Yeah. Kind of falsified truths as well too, which I think is really interesting. I think Clayface is going to turn into like this, like, I think you're going to probably put him in like this Swamp Thing-esque kind of realm as a character, where he's a bit more nuanced than just being like a Batman villain that can just take the face of anybody and just use like, and I think that's really interesting. Like, again, this is why I think James Gunn is so cool. Like, he's cognizant that it needs to be Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman need to be your Holy Trinity, but then your backfill is like a Swamp Thing movie getting greenlit and like a Clayface movie getting greenlit, and like, some people can be like, well, that's not priority. And I'm like, did you watch The Suicide Squad and did you watch Peacemaker? Because like, he immediately gives validity to why these characters matter, juxtaposed to why Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman matter. So I'm actually really excited to see what a movie like this can look like.
Yeah, me too. For sure. And then the other bit of news is Matt Reeves finally apparently turned in the script for the Batman 2.
Yep, he got docked 10 points off his final grade because he turned it in late.
Took him long enough. What
are you doing, Matt Reeves?
I don't know how we knew that this was happening, like the whole time it was going on. They're like, Matt Reeves is going to turn in his script in 2 weeks. And I'm like, how do we know? How do we know this?
Because people can't shut up.
So he finally turned it in, I guess. So the Batman 2 is, I guess, in full force. Not really. We still don't know anything about it. We don't know who's in it. other than Robert Pattinson.
Yep, Robert Pattinson will definitely be in this movie. What's his name will definitely be in this movie too. Colin Farrell. I don't think you can
sure.
go.
Yeah.
You probably, now he's like the king of crime in Gotham until, probably Joker shows up at some, which he already did. Barry Keoghan is playing Joker. Obviously you're probably going to get Catwoman back as well too.
All your favorites are
All
back.
your favorites are back. What does this movie look like for you? What does the Batman Part 2 look like?
I don't know. At this point, I don't know.
Any dreams you have for this film?
I mean, just based on how the last one went, I do think I told you, I keep telling you what my dream, I guess, scenario for this movie is that you do Batman up against, some type of Hush, probably like Hush type character, and you use the Joker as like his Hannibal Lecter.
Mm-hmm.
And like they kind of like quasi work together to like unsolve or solve a mystery in Gotham. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that we've really seen on screen before.
Yeah. Obviously his Batman is very much more realistic. I still think that Batman has like it can still have the slightest bit of fantastical, just the slightest bit. For that reason alone, I think that Mr. Freeze would be like, you set this movie a few months after, obviously, then if Gotham's underwater, what's going to happen when the winter goes? It's going to freeze. You don't necessarily have to give him the gun, but you can kind of just do this like deranged scientist in Gotham or something along those lines. I just think the casting for something like that is more important. Realistically, I think they're going to probably go Hush. I think that's probably, you probably get like you try to get like a bigger A-list actor to play Hush, juxtaposed to him. To Robert Pattinson. I mean, they already teased it in this reporter got killed that his father was, his father had killed. Like, I truthfully think you can probably build, like you said, a Hush type of story as well too. I guess you're probably dealing with two elephants in the room. One is it's the Robin situation. Like, do you tackle a Robin in this movie? Do you even think about doing that? And then you have to kind of show the progression of Bruce Wayne into the billionaire playboy. I think that's the one thing that they need to address is kind of get him further along to be like more of a prime version of Batman.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes both those things make sense. I know people were really trying to get the Mr. Freeze thing going after the Batman released. So we'll see. I mean, I think the reason that the script took so long to make is because truly the state of DC films was in such flux that I don't think Matt Reeves even knew where he and his Batman kind of fit into anything.
Yeah.
So now I think he probably has a better idea of that.
Yeah.
Whether it's, whether they're folding him into the DCU, whether it's going to be kind of like it's still one little side thing. Regardless, I think he now has the answer, and I think his script is written to whatever that answer is.
Yeah, because listen, there's a very real possibility where he could be the DCU Batman. There's like, I just don't know about Robert Pattinson's like his idea for being like, because the last franchise he was in, we saw how that went. But this is a whole different scenario, and him as an actor, I mean, he's leading one of the biggest sci-fi franchises as a villain in the next Dune movie. Because I think he's shooting Dune and then he's shooting this like straight back to back. So
yeah, I think he's more comfortable in his skin as a actor that I don't think the franchise thing much bothers him anymore.
No, and I think the critical reception to the Batman as well too probably helps because the last time he had a franchise thing and it was critical reception was like he's the teen heartthrob that everybody hates, and he was like in a weird way like he was shackled to Twilight. Exactly.
Whereas I don't think he's clearly not shackled to the Batman because he's been doing other things.
Yeah, I mean, look at his Bruce Wayne and then look at a movie like Mickey 17. He's playing two, and that's what every director that's worked with him has kind of said is like he is such a chameleon of an actor of like you can give him something and then he'll kind of adapt. I mean, look at that, and then you look at Tenet, like you're talking about three completely different characters that he embodies. So, my true hope is like I want to see him juxtaposed to David Corenswet. I feel like the two of them would be phenomenal together. They're both, taller individuals. They're both like, and like I said, like if you progress his Bruce Wayne along towards that billionaire playboy, like I think the two of them against each other would be absolutely, but not even against each other, with each other. And I box you the point about the confusion. I think that's the true fear I have is like, within years of each other, presumably if the Batman Part 3 gets greenlit, like having two prime Batman run against each other is going to be so difficult to do.
Yeah.
So, and obviously the Flash movie took years to come out. So
Yeah.
Ben Affleck would have already been done playing Flash or playing Batman by that time anyway. So because the Batman came out in 2022, right? So, I don't think you want to have two Batman just for like general audience sake. I think that's the true thing. I think probably the DCU front, James Gunn, and I understand why he doesn't probably want to touch that because of how good it is. Like I don't want to touch that Batman. Like I want my own Batman for the DCU. I just see a world where like the general audience gets too confused. I'm like, why do I need to see this one if this one's connected to Superman and everybody else?
Yep. Yeah, no, totally. We live in a world where everything has to matter and everything has to be connected.
Yep.
When you're talking about these franchise movies, so you can't really get away with that. You could have probably gotten away with it in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
You probably couldn't have gotten away with it, but now like people are so hyper fixated on continuity that you can't do it.
Especially in the
one of them would suffer for it.
And unfortunately, it's probably going to be
Matt Reeves' Batman. Yeah,
yep.
For sure. We got a couple trailers to talk about. First and foremost, the final Fantastic Four trailer has released, and I think the takeaway is the Silver Surfer is serving.
Yeah, she is serving.
Man,
I herald his beginning.
I don't know what. Maybe Julia Garner can just do that with her voice, but that like robotic, like soulless delivery of that heralding Galactus line, I was like captivated.
Right.
What we got in this last trailer was a lot of I guess just a lot of like kind of action-y bits and kind of the proper like you feel like the story, which we kind of know already, the story is going to revolve around the kid. It's going to revolve around Franklin Richards in some form or fashion. This is probably the most we've gotten out of Johnny Storm in these trailers,
and out of Reed as well too on a physical front. And I mean, we can kind of go character to character. So just starting with Pedro Pascal, I mean, he had that huge, what was it? Was it Variety
interview?
Yeah, Variety. He had a big piece for Variety. He was kind of talking about all the characters he played, and the pressure that he has now. It's funny enough, like an actor of that caliber. I mean, at this point, he's probably the most famous like modern actor on the planet right now.
Yeah,
is Pedro Pascal. So like, for him stepping into a role like this, it's like it's not that easy. Like I have to kind of appease the comic book fans. I have to appease the general audiences, and like I already have like my mustache. I already have something against. Like I have things against me intrinsically. So. It's funny. I was kicking through the original 63 comics because I have the omnibus of like the first issues, and I'm like, the more and more I see of his Reed Richards, I'm like, they actually nailed it. Like he actually nailed it to the point where they told him to dial back the transatlantic accent. They said, chill out with that, man. You're too good at it. His powers look good. I think they did it pretty good. It looks pretty. It's so tough to do it too. Yeah. To do the stretchy powers. Yeah. But they did a really good job. He looks really good.
And again, I maintain that this movie is not going to lean into his elasticity being his superpower. This movie's going to lean into his mind being his superpower.
Yes.
I maintain that. I think that is A, obviously, like you said, it's hard to do. B, I think they're really not going to lean into the elasticity that much because I think they're going to lean into his mind being his superpower is what I think.
Right.
This movie is going to do.
Just thinking because I can't help myself. I do think they're going to do a Council of Reed situation in this movie. Because we got to make the $1 billion. We got to get from the 850 to the $1 billion. So I can definitely see a world where Ioan Griffin, John Krasinski. I would love if Miles Teller was there, but he was the maker as well too. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, I mean, you go to Sue Storm. It's still my favorite casting out of this entire. It is absurd how good she looks as Sue Storm. She looks like the true field leader and the true like social and public leader of the Fantastic Four as well too. And then her being a mother in this film as well too. Like all those things are super important. Like it looks so good. They're not hiding the baby bump anymore, which I love because they were hiding it.
They're also not hiding the baby.
Yeah, they're not hiding the baby at all because now in the trailer you see her baby bump as well too.
The baby is also in this trailer.
Exactly. Yep. Ben looks, Eben Moss-Bachrach as Ben Grimm was one of the most inspired castings you could have thought about. And
he gets a beard?
He has a beard? What time is it, Ben? He looks so good. I love how subtle, and it's such a juxtaposition to him playing Richie and the Bear. Like he's such more subtle. He's much more, of like, lack of a better term, like the Rock of this team. Like he looks like just really much like the design also is just...
Design is incredible.
It is why, like, I was thinking about this with Superman and with these suits. I was like, you couldn't even do this in 2012. You couldn't even do this. Like a full commit to just like, not only just the suits, but the movie itself. Like, do the comic booky stuff, do the outlandish stuff. You don't have to make it, you don't have to settle it down for anybody. You can just do the things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm super excited. And then Johnny. So Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. People
are coming around, and I'm just like, why is anyone surprised that he's nailing this?
I was on that train. I was on the train of like, I don't know, but now I'm sure.
This type of role is what made him famous.
Exactly, right.
the young rogue, Spitfire, like loudmouth, cocky. This is who Eddie was in Stranger Things.
Yep. With a heart of gold.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna shine through in this movie at various points. You're gonna see that element of Johnny's character. Super. Yeah. This was probably the most we saw of him as Johnny in any of these trailers. And you can tell he just gets it. So, and then we saw a little bit more of Galactus. We saw him suiting up.
I love the approach that they're taking. Like they're not showing full Galactus. They're really playing up the event. And that's what I really appreciate. Like this is an end of the world film. Like this is a true like
it's like Armageddon. Yeah.
Exactly. This is like Armageddon. It's like 2012. Like this is a true end of the world film, which is it's a really interesting take because like I feel like the Fantastic Four play is like this like hopeful group, but I love the approach of like you take this family that's already been through some trials and tribulations and you put them in the end of the world scenario and you kind of see how they adapt, what they do, how they approach it, and how do they still stay the heroes that are supposed to keep the world safe. And it goes into the point about Reed Richards about are we safe? I don't know. Like I don't know. Like, and I'm the one that's supposed to know. I hope that drives him. I hope it drives him insane. Like I want to see all those things, and I think that's why you cast Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, because he can teeter that line between being lovable and being like a sadistic maniac, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We still have they're holding the voice. Mm-hmm. They're holding Ralph Ineson's greatest weapon, aside from him being able to destroy planets, is his voice, which is interesting. We know that Ralph Ineson was in a proper Galactus practical costume.
Insane.
Stomping around miniature cities, miniature sets.
Bring back real filmmaking, said Max Shackman.
Yeah, Gareth Edwards somewhere is like, that's my type of filmmaking right there. You got...
Gareth Edwards actually just got a cosmic being.
So that's the one trick they haven't pulled yet is showing Galactus, which I think is perfect.
They have shown the Silver Surfer though, and Julia Garner looks phenomenal as the Silver Surfer. She sounds incredible. I herald his beginning. I herald your end. It's like, wait, what is she cooking?
Someone back there like, is that alien kind of...
No.
Someone somewhere. You know what? I am okay with a female Silver Surfer, actually.
You know what? Maybe the world does maybe we do need to be consumed.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know what it is. I don't know if she can just do that with her voice or
voice modulation.
Or they did that, but it sounded menacing.
I don't particularly know if she can just do that with her voice.
It sounded menacing. So, I mean, I'm excited to see more of that character also.
Yeah. It looks like the action sequences are going to be cool. Whatever the space mission that they have in the end is going to be awesome. But you made the best point, early on when these trailers started coming out and kind of more images, things like I'm most excited to see what they do with Reed Richards to differentiate him. I think Ioan Griffin does a good job of being like, especially in the second one, of like, no, I care about the science, but they still play it down a bit to have his heroic moments. Like, I want to see a Reed that's a little bit disconnected, like, but then gets reeled back in by Sue Storm. I think that's what Pedro and Vanessa really have going well for each other.
Yeah. Yeah, so we got that coming up in 3 weeks ish, which is crazy. And then we got another trailer for Project Hail Mary. So we talked about this a little bit a couple months or month and a half or so maybe. It is a adaptation of a novel written by the same author who wrote The Martian. Stars Ryan Gosling, and we're going back to space. The sun is dying. We got to send one. We have one hope.
His name's movie star Ryan Gosling.
It's Ryan Gosling, and we're going to send him to space to fix the sun. Looks good.
It looks so good. They showed it at CinemaCon, and the crowd was basically like, "No, this looks insane. Like, this is like an absolutely insane film that's about to happen." I mean, for all intents and purposes, it looks really good. I mean, just so for people that don't know about the book itself, I think it came out in the 2020s. Whatever year it came out, it was like I think it was the most popular book of that year in which it came out. It's the same person that wrote Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian. Yep. So that's kind of, your sell right there. I was super surprised when Ryan Gosling signed on to be in this movie. I remember they announced both at the same time, we're doing a Project Hail Mary movie and Ryan Gosling's going to be in it. I said, huh? Movie star Ryan Gosling. And then Lord and Miller were the ones that were directing this. And you're like, wait a minute. you just wait a second. Obviously, you have Sandra Hüller in here, Oscar winner as well, too, which is awesome. And then, the crew itself. I mean, Greg Fraser you add in there as well, too, to shoot the movie. I mean, the movie visually looks so good. Like, it looks absolutely incredible. Like you said, the story's simple. The sun's dying. Go send 6th grade teacher.
Every star is dying.
Every star is, except for one. Oh, every star's and then every star's infecting the other stars, so they don't know that basically the whole the whole universe is about to explode. So we got to figure or about to go cold. So we have to figure this out. So yeah, I mean, it looks fun. Like, it has a lot of like the comedic and the timing and humor of The Martian as well too. But it also looks like it has a lot of heart as well too. And then Lord and Miller know how to really play emotion. So I really think they got a fun movie. It's coming out in March, so solid first quarter of the year film that's going to come out in 2026. So I think they nailed everything in this. I have no reservations. Like, this looks really great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There's also an alien element as well.
Rocky,
which I saw a lot of people were saying, "Oh, did this spoil the movie?" But apparently no. According to book readers, the alien shows up quite early in the book, so there's a lot apparently to come still in this plot, which I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. Superman. Dun, 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 dun. So Superman has obviously a long history. Character first appeared in 1938. Actually, comic number 1. Da 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 da. You know the story. You know the story.
He lifts up the green car.
He lifts up the green car.
He wears his trunks on the outside of his pants.
He is the archetypal hero. There's really no other way to explain it. And then segue into, obviously, we have this character that is truth, justice, and the American way, and it was at the time. And how do we make the dollars off this character? Said movie studios and TV studios. So the first live action appearance of Superman was in 1948 in a serial, and was portrayed by Kirk Alyn, was the first live action Superman. And then a sequel serial Atom Man versus Superman came out in 1950. And by all intents and purposes, Kirk Alyn was well regarded as kind of Superman. He, thought, much like everyone at the time, thought that Superman was impossible to do as a TV show or a movie. And he just kind of, as you do in the day, like they just kind of like, hey, you kind of look like Clark Kent. Do you want to be Superman? And then he was. Unfortunately, Kirk Alyn's career never really took off. You're gonna see that as a through line, especially first couple goes around for these Superman actors. He did appear in the 1978 movie as Sam Lane.
Yeah.
which was nice that he was able to come back, kind of be in the Superman universe. But he had a relatively kind of, non-spectacular career. After Superman kind of had trouble getting work. Passed away in 1999 at the age of 88. So that was the first kind of iteration of Superman in live action. Kind of got the ball rolling as far as like, is this possible? Like, can we do, we can do Batman, we can do kind of more normal hero type serials. Can we actually do Superman? And the answer was yes. Yes, we can. And then that paves the way for George Reeves. So George Reeves, a little bit more of a checkered history with Superman. Got to play the character in the Superman, like a Superman TV show, basically. Portrayed the character for many, many years. Throughout, he did a couple movies, but was really marred by the character and by the, he was typecast.
Yeah.
As the Superman actor.
Right.
And it caused him to not be able to get a lot of work. His career was kind of cut short by portraying Superman for so many years. He portrayed Superman for 6 years, from 1952 to 1958. And then he died in 1959. A year later, after Superman ended at the age of 45, he committed suicide. And then, unfortunately, the most notable thing for George Reeves was he was brought back, quote unquote, in The Flash, in that baffling sequence of like the quote unquote like DC multiverse. And they brought George Reeves back with, I don't even believe it was greenlit by his estate that he was put into this movie. So just a really rough kind of period. And, kind of shows also in the kind of the casting and kind of like Hollywood's take on Superman, that after he portrayed the character and died, we don't see Superman again for 20 years.
Right.
But obviously when he does reappear, we get Christopher Reeve.
The single most iconic superhero actor that's ever graced the planet.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think there's any question that you can debate, quote unquote, who's the best, who's this, who's that. When it comes to Christopher Reeve, it's maybe less so nowadays because it's 2025 and we're 50 years on, but this is who people think of when they think of Superman.
Right. And I think the more important thing for him, it's the cultural impact that he had on the world when he became Superman in 78. Like, a world, some years removed from a massive war, the Vietnam War, coming into, the 80s, the pop culture nature of the 80s as well, too. What Richard Donner and team were able to do in 78 was, the tagline, you're going to see a man fly. Like, it's belief not only in, that statement, but it's belief and hope. That's truthfully the stake in the cultural world stake that Superman has. I mean, obviously we'll talk about it when we get into, what David Corenswet hopefully is going to do with this role, and what James Gunn wants to do with the character overall. But what the true power of Superman is, it's the kid that looks up and, he or she sees this beacon of hope flying. That's the true strength of what Christopher Reeve was. Like, to think you can do a little bit better as a person, to like, get an audience that's, encompassing of all in there. It doesn't matter who you are, where you came from, that you're capable of doing good. And I think Christopher Reeves approaches it with such this subtlety and such this like friend. Like, I'm just a friend. Like, I'm a friend that that you can trust, and that, I can help you do a little bit better.
He talked about that. He talked about his he doesn't, when he, as one of the things that attracted him to the role was the duality of Clark Kent and Superman, obviously. But he said, in playing Superman, that Christopher Reeve was a big man. He was 6'4". He was kind of slender, but he wasn't, he was a big man.
Small, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't a small man. So he decided to play Superman as he kind of underplayed it, where like it was very calm. It was very casual. Like he I think the term he used was he wanted the audience to feel an implied power.
Right.
Like he doesn't have to puff out his chest. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to act strong because he is strong.
Right.
He wanted people to see a familiarity and a calmness in Superman, which I think it was a tremendous decision. They put him opposite some really, really talented actors. Marlon Brando played his father.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest deals as well.
At the time, yeah. Gene Hackman, obviously, the late great Gene Hackman playing Lex Luthor, an iconic kind of portrayal of Lex Luthor at the time. And he just went from there, man. And just in real life, and you're gonna, you get this with actors from time to time. Like in real life, was a philanthropic, an activist, just an overall a good man, that he kind of carried into. He played Superman, across 4 films, and then obviously the story of Christopher Reeve, tragedy cut, his acting career very short. He was, paralyzed in a horse accident. But even then, didn't let that stop him. Continued to be an activist. Continued, do all these great things. For he was a great activist for those with disabilities. Up until his death, in the I think he died in the early 2000s. I think he died in 2004. This is the gold standard. You hope that any actor that you cast, not just for Superman, but just any actor that you cast in a heroic type role, Christopher Reeve is what you shoot for.
Yeah, I mean, the importance of that movie coming out in 78, like, what we always kind of get to? We always talk about Spider-Man, the Raimi trilogy. We always talk about Blade. We talk about X-Men. We don't talk about in 78 Superman coming out, because that's like the grandfather one. Like, that's the one that it's so important that you can do the comic book things. You can have the character wear the tight or the tights and have the cape and fly around and do good. Like, they're so encompassing of each other and so important. So that being your backbone, I think, is super important.
Yeah, and he continued to work, before, during, and after Superman. Obviously, Superman was kind of, where he made his money and made, was kind of most notoriety for. But I don't think he ever fell into the typecast, kind of hole that the earlier actors fell into. He just played the part so well, and people were like, "You're Superman," and he was comfortable. He was comfortable in that role, and I think that's really, really cool. So Superman 4 comes out in 1987. We get a Superboy kind of Smallville pre-Smallville type thing. In 1988 to 1992, you have John Haymes Newton and Gerard Christopher play Clark Kent in the Superboy TV show. Never really goes anywhere. Neither actor kind of really rises to much prominence. Then this is kind of, you kind of talk about, a Superman, is this character cursed? Can this work? Like, was Christopher Reeve like kind of this
lightning
unicorn?
in a bottle, yeah.
Yeah. And then we go to 1993. We Superman takes a break from film. And they think, maybe Superman works better on TV, like as a serial. So we get Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, starring Dean Cain. And this, kind of brought Superman back to the forefront in the early 90s through Dean Cain's portrayal of Superman, which was, again, a little more understated, but good for TV, I would say. The show ran for 4 years. It was written for a much more modern Superman. It focuses much more on Lois and Clark's relationship.
Right.
So you're going to start to see this through line too, of really the, what works for TV is the love story.
Right.
Is what you kind of get with Lois and Clark.
Right.
because you start to see that kind of shot. I mean, her name's in the title,
Right.
so that's kind of where you start to see kind of Lois and Clark as a
Yeah.
unit
Right.
take to the forefront, and then which leads us to New Adventures of Superman ends in 1997, and then in 2001, somebody said you get Smallville. Tom Welling show runs for 10 years. It's great. There's really no other way to say it. I mean, this was the thing that made superhero TV cool.
Yep.
Was Smallville.
Yeah, it's funny how if Christopher Reeve and Richard Donner built that Superman for Superman to work on the big screen, Smallville, and for superheroes in general to work on the big screen, Smallville really ignited what superheroes can do on the silver screen.
Because there's so many superheroes.
There is so many superheroes.
Smallville, kind of ushered in this era of continuity in an interconnected greater universe.
Yep.
Where Smallville, despite the backdrop of being this prequel story, integrated so many DC characters.
Right.
In a cool, kind of wacky, they're kind of heroes, but they're kind of all just kind of prototypes for themselves.
It definitely felt like the early 2000s.
Oh, for sure. But just in the best way. Like they threw Supergirl in there. They threw the Flash, Green Arrow, Cyborg, Martian Manhunter.
Season 10 just has Doomsday in it. Solid design too.
It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
That all the stuff that they ended up doing with Smallville.
I think what Smallville also does, and especially Tom Welling, like being in the early 2000s, like really the teenage fever dream of what it could have been. Like I think he plays on that well. Like he doesn't have the true altruism of Superman yet. He's learning, he's navigating, and that's true youth. Like you're learning how to be a human being. You're learning how to be a good human being, and he evolves throughout that through the 10 seasons that show went on for, which is insane. So
yeah, the fact that they got 10 seasons out of a Superman prequel show just goes to show you the strength of it and how much people resonated with it, and were really felt like if they weren't clamoring for it, they were clamoring for it once they had it.
Yeah, the audience for that is broad because, like I said, you have like the youthful exuberance of what his Superman was like. He was a teenager into a young adult, but then you had the true Superman fans, and then it was just solid television as well too.
Yeah, it is the white whale by which all prequels strive
exactly. Yep.
For. I mean, how many prequels have we seen? Go and fail. Like, Gotham is not Smallville.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Gotham wrestled with its own identity in the sense that they didn't want it to be about Batman, and so they realized it had to be about Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And then by then it was too late.
Yep.
This show did so much. I mean, Doomsday, Dodd, Brainiac,
Lex Luthor.
Michael Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor is iconic.
Right.
He's
one of the teeter points for or the totem poles for what a supervillain should be. And how many reference points do you think he's probably taken from or how much superhero things have come out after that?
Yeah, I mean, Erica Durance's Lex Luthor, Lois Lane.
Yep.
And what they did was they kind of slow played the Clark and Lois stuff,
mm-hmm.
which gave it this kind of drama angle.
Mm-hmm.
It's Lois Lane and Superman, they're going to, but they still were able to play up this will they, won't they dynamic between the two of them. Aaron Ashmore was in this show as Jimmy Olsen. But yeah, I mean, they so many different characters show up in this that it's kind of crazy. And it kept Superman around, like in the zeitgeist for 10 years, and I mean, while Smallville is going on, you get Superman Returns.
Yes, this is an important one because I think this was a studio ask to say we want to
we're ready.
Yeah, we're ready because before this, A few people were supposed to play Superman, and probably most notably, Nicolas Cage was supposed to play Superman in that time.
Yeah, while Smallville is running, like the studios, Warner Brothers is struggling to get another Superman movie off the ground.
But what happened in 2005 for Warner Brothers? They got this filmmaker named Christopher Nolan to do a dark and gritty take on Batman, where Batman during that time, before that in the 90s, was like, is Batman serious? And Christopher Nolan said, yes, he is. I'll show you that he's serious. So I think the studio also said, if we can get Batman to work, we can get Superman to work. And, these IPs are going to make us money.
Smallville is doing well.
Smallville's doing well, so people like Superman.
But what's the one drawback to Smallville? He's not
Superman.
He's not Superman.
So the studio said, let's do a Superman movie. The one thing that they did that I think is like, it robs Brandon Routh a bit, is that he is Christopher Reeve's Superman. That's the only thing that I thought about that.
It's because it's the last reference point that they had.
Yeah.
They haven't made a Superman movie in 20 years.
Yep.
To this point.
Right.
And they kind of looked at Brandon Routh the same way they look at Christopher Reeve.
Yes.
Tall, handsome.
A friend.
He looks like Clark. He looks like Superman.
He looks like Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brandon Routh really looks like Clark Kent.
He looks like Superman. They get what's his name? Bryan Singer to do this. They pull him essentially off of X-Men.
Yeah, they did. Yep.
To do this. And I think this movie kind of suffers for that as well. And you're right, to this point, like, this is supposed to be the same.
It's supposed to be the fifth movie, essentially.
Yeah. It's called Superman Returns, and I think Brandon Routh is quite good.
Oh, I don't know if we want to rank the Superman when we're done, because it's such a tough thing to do, but I love Brandon Routh as Superman. Like, and it's even beyond him playing Christopher Reeve, essentially. I just think he's a phenomenal Superman. Like I said, he's the friend. I think it's the same way I really like Ben Affleck as Batman. It's because of his Bruce Wayne. It's the same thing for Brandon Routh. I love his Clark Kent. That's the most Clark Kent I think we've gotten so far, besides Christopher Reeve, obviously.
Yeah. And yeah, the movie, the budget is huge. The movie doesn't perform super well, so that is marks the beginning, and then kind of
the film itself was also, it was bogged down by like the thing, like the whole. Lex is trying to convert Earth into like tonally that movie is all over the place a bit too.
Yep, it is.
I used to love that movie when I was a kid. I loved that movie.
So that movie comes and goes, essentially.
And that was the first so we thought was the first and last time we'd see Brandon Routh as Superman.
Yes, I guess the thing that kind of ties Tom Welling and Brandon Routh together is they both return in Crisis on Infinite Earths as their respective characters. And I think for Tom Welling, I think it was cute, I guess, is the best way I could put it. He comes back and you find out he lives with Lois. They have kids. He's surrendered his powers. He's mortal, which fits, I think, the Smallville iteration of Superman, where like that's kind of the joke, is like we never saw him as Superman, and now we see him again all these years later, and he's surrendered his powers, and he's just Tom Welling. Looked great though.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
Jacked.
Yeah, he is jacked. He should just play Superman, maybe.
And then obviously Brandon Routh returns as a mixture of his own Superman and the Kingdom Come version of Superman.
Right.
And he's, like you said before about him being Clark Kent, like embodying Clark Kent. I feel like in that crossover, he embodied Superman.
Right. For all intents and a Superman that had lost everything but still kept the hope alive. Like, that was the truest, and it made me so happy because Brandon Routh in that same universe was already playing Ray Palmer.
I know.
He'd already been doing so much legwork as that character, both in Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah, the way he was able to just turn it on, and like felt like Superman, was kind of wild.
It's awesome. It was
also one of the best suits.
Oh my! That Kingdom Come suit is fun because it's George Reeves' suit, but with the Kingdom Come, finish to it. It's awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah, and just you feel like the anguish in that character when because he's kind of sent out as the kind of like he's bouncing around to all these different Earths trying to save as many people as he can. And he keeps failing. Like, these Earths keep getting destroyed, and he returns and he like slams his fist on the ground, and like the Elizabeth Tulloch version of Lois Lane is there, and she's like, "Why don't you like take a break?" And he's like, "I can't. Like I have to go back out there." and then she asked him about the symbol, like why they're red and black, and he said, so you always know that hope cuts through the darkness.
Mhm.
That's why he added the black to the symbol. And then you see him at the end, almost with like a prototype version of the David Corenswet suit,
Yeah.
where it's the blue and the yellow,
Right.
and he does the Superman Returns like fly around the earth, which was great. So super stoked for Brandon Routh. So 7 years pass from Superman Returns to Henry Cavill, the the marred history that is Henry Cavill as Superman.
I mean, you know what he might. You know what? I'm going to take back that statement because I think Brandon Routh hit the Andrew Garfield thing, where like when he came back, like it felt fulfilled when he came back. Like he came back to the point where he can get a little bit more. Henry Cavill's, I think, is still too fresh. Like I would love years down the line that Henry Cavill plays like a older version of Clark Kent. Like I do still see Henry Cavill as like a Kingdom Come version of Superman. Like I still see that in him. Man, what a titular, like
what a wild ride.
Yeah, and again, first up top, I'll say like I feel horrible for him for like kind of what he had to go through from this role. Like he just, and like, I mean, you know me, like, you know how much, like, that was my favorite Superman. Like, I loved Henry Cavill as Superman so much. Like, and because that movie came out when I was 14, I think. Man of Steel came out when I was 14. Yeah. I remember seeing it in theaters and I was like, I'm like, this is awesome. This is so freaking awesome. Like, because you know what's funny? I saw this interview with Tyler, the Creator, a few weeks ago, and he was, I'll pivot for a sec. I saw this interview and he was talking about like whenever kids go like, this is my favorite thing. And they're like, what's your favorite album or what's the most important? They'll be like, yeah, it was, I think The Blueprint by Jay-Z and like, Nas's first album. They're like, no. What's your favorite? Because those aren't your favorite. You'll say they are because you were told to be like, this is the best, but they're not the most important to you. I want to know why you think like in the modern age Playboy Cardi or something like that. You see what I'm saying? Like you can say this person is your favorite, but like for me talking about filmmaking, I mean, I can sit here and be like, Martin Scorsese is my favorite director or Quentin Tarantino's my favorite director, but like, obviously they made films from my childhood into on, but like when they were truthfully at the true heights of their careers, I was either too young or not alive yet.
Yeah.
So for me, like Henry Cavill was my Superman. Like he literally was my Superman as I grew up into my older, like he was my Superman for the longest time. Mm-hmm. So like, I remember like I think I was in New York when I saw this movie for the first time and I walked out of the theater and my mind was blown. Like that truthfully was my Superman. His performance embodied, what we thought was the modern age of like where superhero films were going to, a little bit more realistic, a little bit more serious. Like for all intents and purposes, he was Superman to me. So kind of to see that happen. He doesn't get a sequel, like a solo sequel, which is wild, absolutely insane that he did not get a solo sequel.
He dies in the second movie.
He dies in his second film. I don't understand the approach to that, and I never will understand why that was the approach. He obviously, for different reasons, the Justice League comes out in 2017. They CGI'd over his face because Mission Impossible got in the way. Another just insane, absolutely insane thing to happen. It's like the weirdest little things kept happening to Henry Cavill as Superman. Like he couldn't stick the landing. Like, so what movies was he in? He was in Man of Steel, mm-hmm. Batman vs. Superman, mm-hmm. Justice League,
mm-hmm. Black Adam.
Wow. And that was Superman.
And Black Adam was also this weird thing because it felt like...
Yeah.
I don't know what it felt like.
Well, it was to the point, like, that's when The Rock had, like, ultimate say in, like, the world. Like, the entertainment industry.
Well, The Rock was, like, gonna save DC Comics.
He not only was gonna... Yeah, he was gonna save DC. Like, the DC EU was gonna go back into, like, the front. And, like, he was gonna be a pillar character and, like, Henry Cavill. And I remember when that happened, I know DC Studios started to, like, take the turn, like... I think the point was that whatever, because you know how like they'll put movies on the schedule, like the third Andrew Garfield movie ended up being Tom Holland's first one. Like that's how they work it out. Like for all intents and purposes, the David Corenswet movie probably would have came out earlier, and that would have been Henry Cavill's next Superman movie. So he was supposed to come back, play Superman, and then same thing happened to Andrew Garfield. They were like, nope, we got a new guy. You're out. After The Rock basically, because they have the same agent, I think.
Yeah.
The Rock basically promised, like, no, you're going to be Superman again, and you will just be Superman. The best he'd ever looked as Superman, too,
The
in Black Adam.
suit is incredible.
He looked incredible.
It's been a while since anyone made a world
this nervous.
Just a weird 10-year period for him.
Yeah.
That he just never got to the heights that I feel like he deserved to get to.
And the thing that sucks is he started to evolve as an actor too. Like he really started to turn himself into like a really good actor. I mean, you see him in Mission Impossible, Fallout.
Yeah.
How great he is as a villain, and like, you know, he just never got his chance, like his true swing to play.
It sounds bizarre since he'd been playing the character since 2013, but he never got like a fair shot.
Yeah, 4 appearances as Superman in 10 years in a connected universe.
And one is a cameo.
One is a cameo, and then one he's dead for most of the film.
Yeah.
So I'll never understand. Like I will always be on the train. I feel horrible for kind of, you know, the career that he had, like the career path. Like I'm glad he's off to better roles now and to better things, but just I think, you know, it's funny. I think that's the true misunderstanding of what Superman is. Like, and you know, we're inside baseball. I was having this conversation with somebody. We're inside. Like, we know, like, we'll take any iteration of the character and break it down. Like, but one thing people that like us, not us, but people like us that do this always forget is that we're inside baseball. This is what we eat, live, and breathe every day.
Yeah.
We're not the general audience.
Right.
The general audience will always take the more important precedence. The general audience gets you the $1 billion. The inside baseball people do not get you $1 billion. So, that being said, I think, you know, Zack Snyder's interpretation is one man's interpretation of what Superman should be. You know, it's a subjective understanding to believe that one version is correct and one version is incorrect. However, if you want to look at the worldview of, like, you know, what Christopher Reeve's Superman was, what Superman, if you pick up a comic book today and look inside of what Superman, like if you look at Action Comics 1021, is Superman going to look more like David Corenswet or more like Henry Cavill? He's going to look more like David Corenswet. He's going to act more like Christopher Reeve and David Corenswet. He's not going to act like Henry Cavill. And that's not to Henry Cavill's fault.
No, not at all.
That's a creator interpretation. The one that's more broad and the one that looks like it's the one that will last. And, you know, we saw it happen with Christopher Reeve, how long that lasted. Even after he stopped playing the character, how long it lasted, how long it influenced. That's the type of Superman that brings us into David Corenswet.
Yeah. And then, so while Man of Steel and Cavill is, you know, there's clearly something going on. And so once again, it's crazy how movie studios work, like when you timeline things like this. So it's clear that the Cavill Superman is not working. So they turn back to the small screen and they integrate Superman into the Arrowverse.
Yes. So did you hear, because first of all, we love Tyler Hoechlin is on the Project Infinite whiteboard. He's incredible. Yes. I had the cape on for him, no pun intended, since Teen Wolf. That's my guy. Again, another actor that got better at acting over the years as well too. I love that too, when somebody just doesn't step in and they're like Anna Paquin, who can just act since they were a child. Like somebody that actually has to get better at the craft as well too. I think that's always fun. So Tyler Hoechlin, he said I think he worked with Greg Berlanti before. Yeah. And like he called him and he said like, hey, you want to play Superman? And he's like, yeah, why not? Like, he's like, you might only play him for an episode or two. That's it. And then you're done. He's like, shoot, why not? Who cares? I'll do it.
Yeah. He kind of shows up as this like, almost like a cameo character. Like, hey, Superman is showing up in this episode. But we've talked about this, I don't know how many times now. Immediately. Just got it.
I understand, Mr. White. He said, well,
from the first sentence he uttered, you were like, wait a minute, hold the phone. And he shows up in various things. You know, he does a couple of the crossovers, and then the CW greenlights Superman and Lois.
And we were like, ooh.
We come under the understanding that it's going to be kind of Superman like later on in life.
Got
He's
two twin boys.
two twin sons. It is not going to be connected to the Arrowverse at all, because the rest of the Arrowverse, this show ends up outliving all the Arrowverse shows.
It's the best of what the Arrowverse was. It was Superman and Lois.
And he's incredible. Man,
that first appearance in Supergirl, when he's at the newspaper stand and he's on the phone with Perry White, and he rips the shirt open. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yep.
wait a second.
And he just, again, in the same vein that Christopher Reeve feels like he embodied the character, he embodies the character. The duality is super impressive. What he's able to do with Superman is across the 4 seasons of that show is just nothing short of remarkable.
It is incredible. It's incredible. I love his approach as well too. Like you said, he's a little bit older, so he's seen so many things, but still he's being challenged. He's being challenged on so many fronts, and it's one of those approaches that you don't think like fatherhood. Like that approach in of itself was such a challenge. Like, the most important part about Superman and Lois is Superman and Lois. It's their relationship. They take what Dean Cain had and they revolutionize it essentially for this show.
I mean, they borrow a little bit from All-Star Superman with the angle of Lois having cancer.
Yep.
And Superman
can't fight that.
Can't wrap his head around the fact that the only thing he can do for her is be by her side. He can't save her.
It does so much legwork for Clark Kent as well too, and like the humanity of which Clark Kent has and has adopted. And I mean, what they were doing in season 4, like I loved the season 1's approach because the budget was a little bit higher. The reveal is pretty cool with Morgan Edge being his half brother. Like they do fun narrative stuff. They keep the hope alive of what Superman is as well too, and they kind of ground it a little bit. Like they're in Smallville, like they're in a small town, like, and Superman, this broad figure, is just like a dad in the Midwest, just trying to raise his family.
And that comes all the way around to the final season where he's forced to out himself to the world.
Right.
Which, I mean, how many stories tackle that?
Right.
Where Superman identity is outed to the world.
Right. And that can go so wrong, and somehow they got it right.
No, they crushed it. And then obviously the finale we talked about where this is like Superman, this is your life, essentially. The whole final episode is a meditation on Superman dying.
Right.
And it's unbelievable. That couldn't have gone better. It's one of the best finales of a superhero anything ever. It's so good. The way he just kind of narrates and walks through the final years of his life. I'm just like,
it's
all right.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Tyler Hoechlin as Superman is such a great example of like really truthfully embodying and adopting, the ideologies of what Superman are, but making them your own as well too. And again, it's the father angle. It's what he was in Supergirl was like, he was supposed to be like the figure that was so, and again, I think they're going to take this approach for the Supergirl movie. Like he's the figure, like he's the one. Like I'm watching the scene of like when he shows up at the DOD and like all the agents are like, and he's like, how are you?
Yes,
how are you today?
Supergirl,
like that's Superman. Like that's exactly what he would do. And then Superman and Lois just takes that, and like just him being a father immediately like just transcends it. Like he has to now deal with raising, these 2 teen boys, one of which has powers and still has to have the weight of the world. It adds an extra dynamic, which makes him, even more super, which is awesome. So, then we transition into the next iteration of Superman. James Gunn, teamed with David Corenswet. Saying those 2 things together feel as synonymous as like Richard Donner and Christopher Reeve. Like it's James Gunn's Superman. Like you don't really get that a lot. Like I hear a lot of people say Richard Donner Superman. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Like this is James Gunn's Superman, which is awesome. So, I think one thing I really appreciated was like James Gunn's truthfulness. Like he said, I didn't have a way in. They asked me before. They asked me when I was doing the Suicide Squad, and I said no. Like I don't have a way into Superman. I don't have an in, and I'm not gonna get. And we've seen it in his career how when he has an in to the characters, how incredible they can be. He didn't have an in, so he said no. I'm not gonna touch characters that I don't have like room for, mental capacity for. Like I'm not. Why would I? I don't have like a. I don't have like I don't really want to take on a character that I don't believe like I can truthfully tackle because I don't know them.
Right.
And he said one day, he's like, I got it. Like, I'll take it. I got it. Which led him to not only be the director and writer of Superman, but be the CEO of DC Studios with David Safran. So, or he's the sole CEO, or it's him and David Safran, right?
Yeah.
Or Peter Safran.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
Together.
a co thing.
Right.
Co-owned.
Right. So,
but he's like the creative head, essentially.
Safran's the business part, and James is the creative part. I think he's cognizant that this movie needs to make money, and a lot of that at it. Hopefully, this movie debuts, 160 plus million. That's a tall order, but you're the week after 4th of July. This could be the perfect summer blockbuster as well, too. So I think they really got it. I mean, David Corenswet, you want to talk about a guy that looks like Superman, and what I think David Corenswet really understands is, like, he seems like a good person. Like, he seems like a genuinely, like, good human being. I mean, he grew up in Philadelphia. Him, much as Christopher Reeve, is their theater trained first, their theater actors first. And I love his, like, again, for himself, I love his truthfulness. He said, if I never get another role, like, I'm prepared for this to be, not on even like a good half, but on a bad half. This could be my last role that I ever play. So I'm grateful to even step into the shoes. You see him with the kids on set.
Yeah.
We never saw any of those. And that was one of my biggest complaints about, Zack Snyder's Superman was, like, we never really, like, he did save people, but, like, he only saved people, like, if this makes sense, in, like, the ultimate of ultimate distress. Like, and one of my favorite scenes out of Henry Cavill's whole run is in Batman vs. Superman, the should there be a Superman sequence. Like, I was like, more of that. Like, more of him actually, like, it was a moral quandary that, that kind of rose out of it. But, like, what I'm seeing out of David Corenswet is, like, he's just saving people to save people to save people. There's no, obviously they're dealing with the moral backdrop on top of it in the new Superman movie as well, too. But I think the more important height of it is, like, he's just saving people. I don't want to talk to the president of a nation. I just want to save people because it's the right thing to do. He has emotion.
Yep.
I didn't think I'd ever see that out of a Superman. Like, you know what that reminded me of? That reminds me of Smallville Superman. Like, he has actual human emotions and wants and needs, it seems like. So that made me very, very happy to see. I love that piece where he's just like, he says he's just like, people were going to die, so I went and saved them. Like, there's no if, and, or but. This is what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously we don't have a full movie to kind of absorb his Superman yet. But everything we've seen so far leads me to believe that he's going to be pretty iconic.
Yeah. Especially,
Superman.
right. And I mean, it's the fact that, like, it looks like he's going to appeal to, like, broad audiences. Like, there's no dark and gritty Batmans waiting in the whims, just hiding. Like, no, that's just a good, hopeful Superman. And, like, James Gunn, I don't know if you saw the CBS Sunday Morning interview that they did this past Sunday. It was incredible because James Gunn basically said, like, over anything that happens, over anything that's gonna, like, I want it to be, like, he said it's kind of radical in today's day and age to be good. Like, that's the radical half of it. So I want a Superman that is just good for goodness sake. In the one clip, he said, "What the hey, dude?" Like, he doesn't say, like, he's not saying, like, something like "what the hell." He's saying, "What the hey, dude?" Like,
yeah,
that's Superman. Like, that's truthfully the goodness of his nature. And I think David Corenswet is really embodying it. Like, I don't know if you ever seen that clip from The Politician, like, before, and he said, like, people used to come up to me and be like, "You look like Superman." He's like, well, this is gonna be a crazy thing to learn in a second, but he's got it. Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane is probably one of the most excited I've been for a casting. In this one, though, my favorite casting, I think, is probably Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. I think that's such an inspired choice, and it came, much like, who am I thinking of that ended up, much like Tom Hiddleston, who was supposed to, who'd auditioned for Thor, like, no, we want to keep you, and then, like, we want to see what we can do with you on a prolonged scale. So I think Nicholas Hoult is such an incredible pick as well, too, to play Lex Luthor. So the three of them are going to stay along for a while. And then rounding out the rest of the DCU as well, too, like, this is a universe where superheroes have been around for 300 years, but, like, Superman coming onto the scene is the most important one that there had been, and they're going to play on that as well, too. So I hope they take their time. Obviously, we're going to get a Batman movie hopefully in some years, whether that be, Robert Pattinson or not. I'm all for it. We're gonna get a Wonder Woman movie. He was talking about, like, I understand that's the Trinity. Like, I need to get them fast tracked, but then he gets to do his James Gunn horror monster universe thing, which I think is so cool. So I love how creative James is, but I also love how he understands, like, the importance of what they're about to do.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, we'll revisit this obviously after we see the movie. And then just honorable mention to the I would say the trio of Superman voice actors.
Yes, yep.
Tim Daly, who played him in the Superman animated series.
Yep.
The iconic George Newbern, who played him in Justice League Unlimited, as well as Injustice and all sorts of things. And Jack Quaid, obviously, who plays him in My Adventures of Superman. For a long time, the Tim Daly and George Newbern version of Superman were the kind of the tether that we had to Superman in the 90s and the early 2000s especially. So I mean, it's a long history with this character, and not a lot of, in terms of how long the character's been around, how long the character's been around in live action. It's kind of a mixed bag of success. For every Christopher Reeve, there's a Brandon Routh, et cetera, et cetera. For every, Tom Welling, there's Henry Cavill, who was great, but obviously was just marred by just unfortunate circumstances and studio not being able to do the thing. Yeah,
I think much like Spider-Man, we've never got a bad Superman actor. Like, we've never got a bad Superman, which is, very, very thankful, because Batman can't say the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, the Batman, lineage can't say this exact same thing for the role. I'm not saying the actor themselves, but for the role itself. So to be that lucky to get some great actors like that as well, too, is awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, Henry Cavill is your favorite, obviously?
I mean, it's tough. I'll say that now, and I don't want to, dip into the realm of recency bias, but Henry Cavill is it's literally the Superman that I had. Like, that's my Superman.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I mean, there's aspects of all of them that I really enjoy.
I know who you're going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've really come into appreciating the Tyler Hoechlin iteration of Superman.
He's so good.
It's the first, I've seen the Reeve movies and they're great. And Christopher Reeve, obviously, I think Christopher Reeve deserves, like, recognition as, like, a one of one. Like, you can have your favorites, but he's objectively the best.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That's kind of how I feel about it. Like, we can all have our favorites, but, like, there's one that you kind of gotta,
tip the cap to.
Yeah. So I mean, Christopher Reeve, like, he may not be my favorite, but I can also recognize that he's Superman. But no, the Tyler Hoechlin iteration made me feel a way about Superman that I'd really never had before.
Right.
So I mean, that's going to be the one, that kind of holds a special place for me. But there's so many other, like, I didn't get swept up in the Smallville thing the way a lot of other people did.
I was too young for it too.
Yeah, I mean, I was 14, 15, like, I was right there.
You were kind of the target audience.
Yeah. So I mean, I was right there. I don't know. I just never really viewed it in the same way. Like, I kind of came into that stuff really late. So I never had the reverence for Smallville that so many other people have. That's why I kind of lean towards Tyler Hoechlin, because fully formed, like, being into this stuff now, like, that's kind of like that's who I feel most strongly about, like, as Superman. So I mean, that's it. That's Superman, the history and heritage of Superman, and we'll be seeing James Gunn's iteration in a little more than a week.
Yep.
So that's what we're going to be talking about next week, is going to be Superman.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Wild.
So that's it for us this week. You can follow us on Twitter at ProjectNF_pod. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on TikTok and YouTube at the Project Infinite Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram
at the Project Infinite Pod.
Ironheart thoughts, real quick.
3
episodes in.
I'm getting the same feel that I got when I was watching Agatha all along. I'm like, you guys should have paid more attention to the show. Also, shame on Marvel for not promoting this more and not having more trust in themselves. Like, the lead up to this, I didn't even know what day this show was coming out. Like, this is a major Marvel production. I had no idea which day. That's a problem. That is a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I liked it.
I'm
liked
having
the first 3 episodes.
I'm having some fun.
I think Dominique Thorne is dynamic. There's this really interesting narrative surrounding like the use of AI to compensate grief that I was completely blindsided by. In these first 3 episodes, in regards to her best friend Natalie, who she turns into an AI accidentally, essentially.
Insane.
And she's using that as like a coping mechanism for her grief. And I'm just like, wait a minute, hold on. So I think she's really good. Looking forward to these last 3 episodes and seeing what they have in store. I think Anthony Ramos is good as the Hood. We haven't seen enough of him like wrestling with that darkness that you kind of see at the end of the 3rd episode, where it really feels like he's gonna lean in, like that's gonna be leaned into more.
My fear is that this show, villain-wise, is gonna play like how Miss Marvel did, where the villain is such a second ship to like what the true narrative of the show is. That's my only fear for him, is that they're not gonna play him up enough. And then that character is going to be killed and dumped out, and then the Hood is just going to go, like the physical Hood is going to go elsewhere. I do think this show, probably to save the fact that this show should have came out in 2022 or early 2023, right after Black Panther, is that they're going to have a big cameo in the show, or B, Mephisto's going to show up. Those are probably the last 2 pieces of this show. But Dominique Thorne is incredible. She's great as Riri Williams. I love how unapologetic she is as well too. I love her kind of arc. It's very interesting. Like, it's funny because people are forgetting where Tony Stark came from. Like, his whole thing was also money. It was also money. It was also fame. It was also like, he wasn't humbled yet. She's about to be humbled, and Natalie and that character is doing such a great job of grounding her a little bit and understanding like the moral like wrongs and rights. I think that's such an interesting take on that character as well too, and like how she's like, I need to be Tony Stark because I need money to be Tony Stark. No, you need what you have already to be Tony Stark. You already have it, and you don't need to be Tony Stark. You need to be Riri Williams.
Yeah. And then looking forward to the Alden Ehrenreich character, like coming into his own as Obadiah Stane's son.
I really appreciated that the first line out of his mouth is like, I've been doing, it's not like I will have revenge for my, he's like, no, my father is the worst and don't want to be anything like him. But unfortunately, you know, he's slipping into ways that he doesn't even realize that he is. So
yeah, I really enjoy it. And I think your point is well taken, that they should be prouder of this show, I think, than they appear to be.
Right. That's
they kind of like dumped it onto Disney Plus, and they were like, hey, Ryan Coogler's involved in this thing.
Yeah, and it's funny, after Sinners came out, they were like, Ryan Coogler did this thing.
And you do feel a lot of his thumbprint on this.
This show looks this is probably one of the best looking things out of the multiverse saga as well too. Like, this show physically looks so good. The CGI looks it's top tier.
It's stylized.
Yeah,
you
it's very stylized.
You can tell he did a little bit more than just slap his name on it. It does feel like he definitely was involved in some creative capacity.
Right.
Behind the way things look, behind the feel of it.
Right.
It does feel very adjacent to Black Panther in that respect. Which I think is really, really cool too.
Right. So I'm really hoping that they stick the landing. That's what I'm nervous about, especially like I said with the villain, with the Hood. I think Anthony Ramos deserves a little bit more. And my fear too is if this rumor about Sacha Baron Cohen playing Mephisto is right, that immediately just takes Parker Robinson, and who cares? Like, who cares that he was ever in the show?
Right.
And then Anthony Ramos, unfortunately, never again can be in a Marvel thing if he gets killed, or like he's just done after that, and that's a waste of Anthony Ramos as well.
Yeah. So yeah, Ironheart thoughts, pretty good so far. Looking forward to the back half of the season. But yeah, next week is going to be all Superman all the time. We're going to review it. And depending on when we record, it might just have to be either a full non-spoiler review, because we're going to be seeing it a little bit early, or it'll be like pretty non-spoilery and then a heavy like warning, like spoiler section is probably how we're going to do it. Just to, so we don't jump on people who haven't seen it.
Right.
But yeah, that's gonna do it for us this week. I said all the socials. From me, from the Henry Cavill of the podcast.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I mean, it's coming. It's coming for you. You know.
I don't know what that even means.
I don't know.
Was that a threat?
It's a who knows? Who's to say? It's a mystery, much like Henry Cavill's career as Superman.
I hope he comes back as Superman at some point. I think James Gunn would bring him into a multiverse capacity.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole other thing. It's a multiverse. There's always a multiverse.
It's been miss after miss.
The Cavalrine.
The Cavalrine.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week for Superman. Until then, goodbye.
Peace.